Welcome to Yoga Therapy, the Alchemy of Healing. My name is Marie Pampanin. I am your host. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button if you enjoy the information that we're sharing. Thank you so much for your support. Hi, Nichole.
Hello.
First, let me just say thank you. I've been feeling very blessed, very, very blessed to have everyone come on and very blessed to have you come on.
Thank you so
I
much
was
for
waiting for the
inviting
no, I
me.
can't do it.
It's exciting to be here, and I feel very grateful to have the opportunity.
Thank you. So I've been asking everybody to share their experiences with their journey on their way to yoga therapy and what they think yoga therapy is. So I am just going to hand it right over to you and let you
All
have the
right.
floor.
My journey to yoga therapy was through being a science teacher and a school administrator. I was already a yoga teacher, and I was bringing yoga into the school, into my students, and into other classrooms when I was an administrator, because I saw how dysregulated the students were, and not just the students, but the teachers were burned out, stressed. And I thought, you know what? My day is better when I go in and do a little bit of movement and breathing and reading stories, whatever was appropriate for the age level of the kids. And I started doing more and more of that and seeing how beneficial it was. But as an administrator, my job was asking me to do more state testing, go and knock on doors to kids who aren't coming to school and say, hey, I know life's really hard at home, but could you come in and take this state test? And I hated that. I knew it didn't sit well with my soul. I knew it wasn't right for the kids and it wasn't right for me. And I had found out about the master's in yoga therapy at MUIH, which is now NDMU. And I applied, and I thought, oh man, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how this is going to work for our family. My husband was in a transition period. His school had been shut down. So he didn't have a new teaching job yet. And with an administrative job, that's pretty decent pay. And he said, just quit. It's fine. It's not right. Go to school. So I did. And then everything worked out. He got a new teaching role. And I went through school and loved it and made wonderful, amazing friends and contacts. And I learned so much. And so now I work in schools as a consultant. Some schools I'm at every week online as a yoga therapist, and we do social emotional learning. I'll work in schools as a professional development coach, come in and teach teachers how to understand the trauma and some of the behavioral issues that they see in school, and use some just really simple techniques and tools that they can help their students calm down and themselves. They can calm down.
Mhm.
And in some schools, I even get to work with the teachers. If it's an online school and they have a more flexible schedule, the teachers actually get to come see me for yoga therapy.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I work in other places too. I don't know if you want me to talk about that now or later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, I work in at a children's hospital in a partial hospitalization program in behavioral health. So we have teens for 10 days, and they go home, but they come back to the hospital every day so they can work through all of their stuff. And we have mental health counselors and psychologists, psychiatrists, and I get to be the yoga therapist and work with the kids while they're there and learn how to regulate their nervous systems, learn how to embrace the feelings of anger and frustration that they have, because like we're human, we're allowed to feel those feelings, and
Mhm.
sometimes that's new information to them. um, I also teach at MUIH/MDMU, and I've had wonderful students like you along the way. And I coach track, and we do yoga therapy recovery days. I see private clients. I work at music festivals, and I think that's most of the ways that I share yoga therapy. I love that my days are not the same every day and that I get to make it what I want, because when I was in school, it felt, it was very structured and it was not at all what I wanted. So now I get to do the things that I think are my best way to contribute to healing, sharing my passion. So that's how I got here.
That sounds like an amazing path. And so I'm listening to, I'm like, what do you not do, Nichole?
I don't do windows. I don't, I don't like to fold laundry.
Right there with you on that one.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you brought up was social emotional learning. Can you expand on that a
Yeah.
little bit? And how
Yeah.
yoga therapy?
Yeah. Social emotional learning is a way that it's actually, there's a whole curriculum on it, and it's nationwide curriculum. And pretty much every state has just adopted the national curriculum for it. But it's ways to help kids do things like know how to find a safe person to connect with, know that they could talk to their school counselor, or maybe a community member, or a friend, a parent, somebody that can help them kind of co-regulate. And co-regulation is one of the skills that social emotional learning teaches. It helps them learn how to be mindful. It helps them learn how to feel their own feelings, and maybe even like avoid the shame or the guilt, and instead of wearing that, processing it, right? Like, we're
Mm,
allowed to feel sad, we're allowed to be sad and happy at the same time. Or
mhm,
at the younger ages, it might be something like, what do I do if a friend like takes my crayon? Do I hit
mm,
that person? Do I take it and break the crayon? How can I ask nicely for that back? How can I deal with the thoughts and feelings that are coming up? And at the older ages, like, it's instead of a crayon, like maybe it's a friend or a boyfriend, a girlfriend, something like that.
mhm.
And at the older ages, there's more goal focused things, like what are they going to do when they graduate? What are their strengths, their skills that they have that they can work with? So that's most of it, I guess,
Okay, thank
without
you.
breaking down the curriculum.
Yeah. No, I really am grateful that you can share that. Can you also maybe expand a little bit on what co-regulation means?
Yeah. Co-regulation is this idea that when we are with other humans, we are looking at each other for signals of safety. So, like, you started this podcast, you had a very welcome smile, the tone of your voice was safe. So, I know that I can smile back, I can relax my shoulders, I can say, this is going to be a wonderful conversation, and relax a little bit. So that's one
Yeah.
example of co-regulation. The opposite could be, um, if there is a loud noise and a child looks to a parent and the parent freezes and holds their breath and gets tight and tense, the child could get tight and tense. And maybe that loud noise was just the door slammed shut because the wind blew. So the co-regulation patterns that we are taught are very impactful in our future behaviors. If we are around people that teach us to be tight and tense and keep us in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses more than we actually need to be, that can be very unhealthy co-regulation. And so, say, for example, a child is there and then they go to school and they're supposed to let their guard down. They're supposed to share their crayons and their scissors and their markers, but they haven't been taught that in the co-regulation in their environment. It's very strange and different. So now it's hard for that kid to be at school.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think that leads right into working with the dysregulated nervous system, which is something that you said that you like to work with.
Yeah. So when I have, whether it's a patient or a student at school or an adult, try to observe their nervous system and see how they are handling the world. And I
Mm,
also check in with my own nervous system because of the co regulation. I can start to feel in my own body what might be going on in theirs, just because we have these mirror neurons and we start to mirror what other people are doing, whether we recognize it or not. So when I work with somebody, I try to help them understand, where are you on this fight, flight, freeze, fawn response? Are you in rest and digest, or are you triggered? And when I
Mhm.
work with patients at the hospital a lot, we talk about um, like this rainbow, and there's a window of tolerance. There's a rainbow, and on each end there's a cloud. And are you in this like really upset, angry lightning cloud? Are you in the rainbow, or are you in this sad raining cloud, right? And we want to be in the rainbow as much as we can, in the window of tolerance. But sometimes we're over here, and that's okay. And sometimes we're over here, and that's okay. But where are you today? Where are you right now in this moment? And sometimes that's a really hard question for people to answer, because we've been taught to say, most of us, I think, in this culture, we've been taught to say, I'm fine. Everything's fine. How are you today? Fine.
Right.
Um, so helping people recognize where they are is that first step. But in order to even recognize where we are, we have to create a safe environment so that
Mhm.
there's trust for the student or the patient, the adult, to say, I'm really not fine today. I guess I'm really not fine, or I need a minute to not be fine.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really quite a journey to get from awareness and being accepting of where we are to then even figuring out, where do we want to go? Because sometimes we don't even give ourselves permission and the ability to recognize where we're actually trying to get, because we get so stuck in this place of, I'm fine, I'm fine,
Mhm.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that makes sense, or if there's somewhere to break that down a little differently.
It does make sense to me. I've been in that. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Yeah, it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a yoga therapist in all these different arenas, working with people to, help them regulate their systems, working with children, finding their emotional balance and teaching them all of these wonderful skills. One of the things that you mentioned were the koshas and the different layers that we work with. How would you describe these different layers, the koshas, to somebody who knows nothing about yoga therapy or yoga?
Yeah. Well, first, I would probably try to see how open are they to talking about layers of energy. And if that freaks them out a little bit, I might kind of back off a little bit. But I like to help people understand that we do have these different layers of existence. So if energy is kind of a hard idea to swallow, we can maybe talk about how everything is energy. This jacket is energy. My breathing is energy. So everything's made up of energy. And the science teacher in me likes to break it down that way, if the audience is receptive to that. But maybe an easier way is to just say, we have these layers of existence, and the outermost layer is our physical body. And that's really easy to understand. We know when our muscles hurt. We know when we feel good in our body. We know when we want to eat or when we want to drink. So we have this layer of the body that holds all of these layers for us in our human existence. So in yoga therapy, we want to move the body and stretch the body and open the body, because the body stores information from all of these different layers in it. And usually people are like, oh yeah, okay, I can buy into, yeah, there's a body layer. That's fine. Science can tell me all about the body layer. You can do anatomy and physiology, kinesiology, all of that stuff. Then the next layer is a little more subtle. It's our breath body, our energy body. And people can usually still understand that because we take a breath. We can do it right now. Breathe in, breathe out. Did you feel that in your body? Did you feel your chest move, or was your breath more in your belly? Which one of those is better for your body? Have you ever thought about that? So now we're already connecting the body to the energy, to the breath layer. Without the breath layer, without the ability to take in energy and release energy through the breath, the body doesn't get to function and exist.
Yeah.
Then the next layer, so science is still supporting this, right? Respiratory therapist, we understand, we've all seen the picture. We breathe in, and then there's a tree or a flower, and it takes the molecules and we exchange it, and there's a sunshine. Yeah, okay, this is all good. And the next layer, the next more subtle layer, is our mental emotional body. And science still supports this. We have psychology. Yeah, of course, we have a mental emotional body. But the really cool thing in yoga therapy is we start to help people connect what's going on in the mind is a function of the body. And we start to talk about the language. The language of our body is sensation. So if you touch your hand, you squeeze your fingers, you're feeling some sensation, and the body sends that message to the mind, and the mind translates it into an emotion. So our mind speaks in emotion and our body speaks in sensation. So when we are in a tough spot and we don't like the emotion that we have, or maybe the opposite, we love the emotion that we have, yoga therapy teaches us to pause and notice and say, what's going on in my body right now? What can I change in my body? What parts of me are feeling tight and constricted? What can I change? Where can I open up? Where can I relax? Where can I explore? And we start to realize, and it's not usually a fast process. Over time, we start to realize when I open up these muscles, when I open up these energy layers, I can start to process and feel through and think through situations a little bit differently. I can start to respond instead of react. And that's a big part of the social emotional learning too. Learning how to make a choice in our actions and have some ownership in the outcome. So we don't really know where the mind is. We think of it in our brain, maybe it's out in front of you. So it's getting a little more subtle. But now we can go from the mind to our intuition. And in yoga land, I call it yoga land. It's like a playground, yoga land. That we think about our intuition maybe as our third eye, but in science, we're learning more that our intuition is in our gut. It is from the billions of bacteria that send messages and signals, and we are co-regulating with our bacteria in our gut. And that gut feeling is our intuition. So our intuition is here and also here. And if you ever want to come back and talk about chakras, we can talk about the connection between the chakras and our intuition. So
that.
so here and here, this is our intuition. And our intuition comes from our gut, comes from our body, but it's also more subtle. So our intuition is in our body, and it's in this next more subtle layer called our wisdom body, our intuitive body. But you'll notice it's still connected back to our physical body, and our intuition is informed by all the patterns and habits we start to notice from the world around us. Our ancestors would have lore about if the birds do this, that means a storm's coming. If the insects do this, that means the harvest is going to be a certain way. So that's intuition, patterns and habits from the world around us. And we start to know and internalize that in our guts and in our minds and our ability to recognize. And so we've got our mind, our intuition, our mind, our energy, our breath body, our physical body. And then that goes on to our most subtle energetic body, which is our connection to something beyond ourselves. And some people might think of this as their religion, although I think that's a little too narrow. I think it's beyond a religion. It's more of a, how do you connect with nature? How do you connect with other people? It's part co-regulation, but it's also regulating within the entire ecosystem, within the entire continent, the entire planet, and ultimately the universe. So the bliss body is connecting to something bigger than yourself. It might be kindness, donating to your food bank. It might be starting a podcast to share the beauty and magic of yoga therapy. So we give and we receive. So I like this idea of the universe has my back. The universe has my back. So I'm connected to the universe. I don't always see the outcome. I don't always know how this bad day is going to pay off in the future. But when I believe that it will, because I'm going to face the lessons head on, I'm going to dive into them. I'm going to maybe cry with them and explore them and maybe pout through them. But eventually I'm going to say, okay, what can I learn from this? And the universe will have my back and something good will come out of it eventually. So connection to something beyond ourselves. And we connect beyond ourselves through this human body that is receiving breath, that is translating information into emotions, that is using intuition to inform decisions, to decide how to connect with the universe. So none of these layers are in isolation. They all depend on each other. And they're all working, sometimes behind the scenes, sometimes we're directly working with them, but it's just really beautiful. And if you take time to just sit with it and think about which layers are more prominent in your awareness right now, which layers are you working with, which ones are you avoiding? Lots of good questions
Yes,
can come out of that. And that can be where you start your yoga therapy journey, just considering the koshas and what you're avoiding.
I like that. I do like that. So you said that you have several jobs that you do. And so you work with people one-on-one. You're over at M.U.I.H, which is now,
NDMU.
thank you. Um, so in each thing that you're doing, everything's going to look slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
What would be that common thread in your jobs?
I think the common thread is understanding that we're all trying to regulate our nervous systems, and we're all um, to embrace our humanity and trying to stay human. That's what we're doing in this go round. You know, we're here as a human to figure out how to live this life. And once we understand that our nervous system goes in these waves, we have stressful moments, and there is something to learn in stress. We're allowed to be stressed, and then we have calm moments, and then we're going to have stress again. So how do we ride this wave of our nervous system, of our day going up and down, just like our breath, in and out, in and out. And in different places, I can use and access different tools. In some schools, I cannot use the Y word, yoga.
Mhm.
Even in schools where the state actually has in the curriculum the word yoga, there are just places where we just don't call it yoga. So we don't do yoga. We do mindfulness. We do breath in books where we breathe and we move. But at the end of the day, we're just regulating our nervous systems. In other places, they're like, yeah, bring your oracle cards, bring some crystals, bring a hand pan, let's burn some sage. But we're still doing the same work, and different people are open to different avenues. I'll see some patients at the hospital and they're like, I'm not doing yoga. Like, oh, okay. Would you like to breathe today? What? Oh, yeah, because if you're breathing, we're actually kind of already doing yoga. They might have this preconceived notion that they're going to be doing handstands or backflips or something crazy like that. No, we're just going to see where you are and what you need today. But by and large, I have found that the majority of the people that are, I don't want to say forced into time with me, but they're at a school, they didn't call me up and say, hey, I really want some yoga therapy. They're very receptive to it once
Mhm.
they learn that we're going to be safe here. We're going to be safe. So I think that's the
Mhm.
common thread, just balancing nervous systems and learning that it's all going to be all right.
Yeah. So breaking some of that up, if you were working with somebody one-on-one who did actually call you up and say, hey, Nichole, I heard you were a yoga therapist and not really sure what yoga therapy is, but how would it look if I came to you because I have a bad back and I'm in chronic pain?
Yeah. I would gather some history. That's one of the differences between yoga and yoga therapy. We know a little bit more about how to gather medical information, how to connect with maybe your physical therapist or your doctor or your chiropractor to get some background information to see if there's been a physical injury. And I would get into the mental emotional part because that's really my favorite part, because I think that's when we're able to connect the body and the mind to
Mhm.
empower people to make that connection. That's when they start to unlock stuff, and that's when it's just they go on this like a roller coaster of, oh, and then I realized this, and then I figured out that, and then
Yeah.
that's my favorite thing to see. But so usually start with an intake, maybe a 15-minute phone call to see if this is what they think it is, if this is what they want it to
Mhm.
be. And based on what they share, I'll ask them um, if they would like different options. And sometimes I can include Reiki. We can do Oracle cards. I have different things here, like an infrared sauna. We can do floating meditation on the water. Just kind of tuning into what they are bringing up. If I notice they want to be outside, they like nature, we'll take it outside, or
Mhm.
they can be in here. But I try not to overwhelm people by dumping out all the tools at once. Just trying to
Right.
kind of tune in to what it is they seem interested in. But then if they come here and they see all my stacks of Oracle cards, I'm like, what's that? Oh, do you want to know? We can play with that next time.
Sounds like fun. One of the things that I've been noticing more and more over these last few years, some of it is in the research. And since I know you also enjoy science, if you know of any research or if you've read any of it, please feel free to share. But they are Western medical science, right?
Mhm.
It's beginning to understand quite a bit now that the emotional, physical, energetics of the body are not separate. They do
Right.
work together. And so somebody that might be experiencing, um, I'll go back to chronic pain just because I already brought it up. Somebody who's experiencing chronic pain, it may not necessarily be from an accident. It can be from an accident, but it may not be from an accident.
Absolutely.
It could be from an earlier trauma. And when we work with people that have maybe a high ACE score,
Yeah.
uh, we do find ways to help them unlock some of the physical memories in the body. You want to
Mhm.
speak into that a little bit?
Yeah, I do love doing somatic work with people,
Mhm.
but it really takes some time to build that trust and a safe space. And if they come willing, it's a lot easier because they're like, yes, I'm giving my body permission to explore
Yeah.
this. Um, so giving that safe space to explore and to tune in and notice little things going on. Um, and that's kind of like your intuition of noticing what's going on in your body, your mindfulness of being aware, and letting yourself feel safe enough to release this tension, release this wall or guard that you've had up, and creating a space to cry together, to laugh together. I always have tissues on hand at yoga therapy because I feel like if someone cries in session, that is such an honor, that they're able to let go of that. So please come and cry at yoga therapy. It's so good. Sometimes I will cry with you, and maybe not everybody cries with their clients, but if you need me to cry with you, I'm your girl. Yeah, so it's really beautiful. It's really healing. But if people need some support on that, there are different books that you can look up, and I can give you some that we can list in the show notes. You probably already have them listed from other episodes, I imagine. You can look into the polyvagal theory. That is really helping us understand how this amazing nerve, the vagus nerve, comes out of our 10th cranial nerve, comes down and connects to pretty much all of our major organs, right?
Yeah.
And it is sending up so much information to the brain, and we can't always process all of that information. I don't know if your computer's like mine, but I literally probably have 70 tabs open right now for all the different things I'm doing, and my computer starts to slow down. Our brains are the same way. In a really nice, safe yoga therapy practice, we let our brains slow down, and we can let the body's messages catch back up. And we can start to process and interpret the signals. And then the vagus nerve can start to allow the messages to be received so that we can process the information and maybe let go of that tension and tightness we've been holding on to from a trauma that was 5 years ago, or the buildup of trauma, a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit more here. So there is a lot of science to support what we have intuitively known through the practice of yoga for literally thousands of years. We didn't maybe have the science to explain it. We didn't need it because we knew it worked. And now we kind of went from one end of the spectrum where it was like, we don't really need science. We're just gonna use this magic, this ancient wisdom. We're just gonna lean into that. And then there was a shift in the world, and we're like, oh, science, microscopes, telescopes, bacteria, cool things, antibiotics. Like, we need all of this. So we're way over here in science land. And now we're letting the two merge. And the fact that I can work in a major hospital as a yoga therapist and document and chart in an electronic medical record that this worked with this kid and we did this and that's huge. That's saying like these major medical systems understand that yoga therapy is powerful and works. And so now I think it will kind of seep out into other areas, and schools are starting to see that it works, but it's not under yoga therapy, it's under social emotional learning. So it's kind of like we've been speaking different languages, and we finally have this like Rosetta Stone, and it's being translated.
That is so true. And one of the not one, many, there's many things I love about yoga therapy, but there's this piece of let me go back a little bit. When you said you've sometimes have pride with your clients, right?
Yeah.
In yoga therapy, because it is a practice that we are doing with our clients, we're not giving them anything. We're being collaborative.
Right.
We are part of this healing process with them. They set the goals. We help create skills, for them to bring into the world. We're not a therapist or physical therapist or a doctor, but we do get to move into these spaces. And I've commented on this before in previous podcasts, but we're like that. I kind of feel like we're that glue in the middle of everything that kind of holds things together. And we get to come in and have this piece of really being with somebody and really connecting with them, which for in my experience, especially as a marriage and family therapist, that is the one major difference that I've noticed when I'm working with clients is that there isn't this wall of disconnect where I sit back, I let the person process, and I'm not necessarily part of that process. I'm told not to be part of that process, as a matter of fact. But as a yoga therapist, I can be there. And one of the things that I feel is probably, and I say I feel, but I do believe that it's also been documented that it works, is that when you're looking at somebody and you're really hearing and you're connecting with them in that space of healing, that is the one of the most healing things that we can do for somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you have the background of both the therapist practice and the yoga therapist practice, because you can probably create exactly the kind of space that anybody could need and offer whatever kind of co-regulation they need. Some
Yeah.
people might not be ready for a yoga therapy space. Some people might be ready for yoga therapy space and not want the traditional therapy because they've been moving and exercising and doing a jazzercise or whatever since the 80s. And now they're like, oh, I can talk about my feelings if I'm able to move, but I'm not going to be able to talk
Mhm.
about my feelings if I'm just sitting here in an
Yeah.
office. So that really is a
That,
beautiful option that you're able to give.
yeah, and that kind of goes back to something we spoke about prior to the cameras turning on, which is, when I am working with people, even because I also teach, fitness classes and I do personal training. And so when I'm working with people, it is really interesting to see how they hold their emotions in their body,
Mm-hmm.
and when you do bring them together, there is this magic that happens where
Yeah.
things start to open and they're like, oh, I didn't experience that before. Oh, I didn't know, what that was about. And so
Yeah.
it's a pretty amazing thing that we get to do. And as you've pointed out, in different arenas.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So in the hospital, how does that look in the hospital for you?
In this program at the hospital, I get to work in groups with patients. And so I'll go through their chart and see, why are they here? And it's
Mhm.
it's usually that combination of anxiety, like maybe some PTSD, complex PTSD, um, maybe some suicidal ideation, depression. Those are usually, that combination is usually why people are there. And then I'll check in with a therapist and just kind of see what they have been seeing, because you get more information from people than you do from the chart. And then see who's there, because it's every day, it's a different combination. So, like if somebody started on Monday, they have 10 days. So then somebody else might start on Tuesday. So every day is a different combination of kids. And get the mats set up and try to be very trauma informed, trauma sensitive to the setup, to the languaging, to what I'm wearing, to the music I play. I have a playlist called hospital/mental health approved on Spotify that I'm starting to grow, because I can't have any references to, anything that's inappropriate. And I'll have a loose plan in my head of what we can do, and then we'll see where everybody is today. Sometimes we might need to start with more movement before we can breathe, but breathing is
Mhm.
always, it's either one or two, right? If I've got a bunch of 12-year-old boys who are ADHD and there's yoga blocks on the floor and they're already juggling with them, probably we're not going to start with belly breathing. We're probably going to start with, oh, let's take this block and what can we do to move this block and then have it find a still place on the ground. So I've got to, I love the challenge of seeing where they are, what's
Mhm.
showing up today, and then working with that. I know there are programs out there that are scripted yoga
Mhm.
classes that are for maybe more for schools. That is not how I work at all. I just want to see what energy is there, and then I'll lean into my friends that are yoga therapists and yoga teachers and say, "Hey, what do you recommend for this? Got this one kid."
Mhm.
It's not like I instantly always have all the answers. I do my best every day to show up and meet the needs, but I might have somebody who's bouncing off the walls, like quite literally bouncing off the walls, and another person who's like this and can't stand that that person is doing that over there. That happens in my own house, quite honestly. One kid bouncing around, and other kids going, "Will you just stop?" Um, so we're looking at what's the energy in the room doing, and that's what a nervous system regulation is, right? Like, where is
Mhm.
the energy? And we'll usually ask, like, notice, where is your energy today? How are you feeling today? And a lot of times I'll use an emotion sensation wheel. I really love the one that Lindsay, I'm not going to say her last name right, Lindsay Brahman. I'm trying to see if I have a copy of it on my desk. I bought that one from her Patreon site, and it has big feelings in the middle, and then it breaks it up into more descriptive feelings. So
Mhm.
angry is a very general term, right? But we'll talk
Yes.
about how angry can be other words like annoyed, maybe fearful of the unknown. Just break it down. And then the outer rim is what that might look like in your body. So we might start talking about that, like pointing to it. Where are you today? And if you don't want to share it out loud, that's fine. But tuck into your head, where are you today? Where do you want to be today? You're allowed to be two things at once. You're allowed to be so mad that you're here and so happy that you're here. Because now you're not at school because you're doing school at the hospital today.
Mhm.
And you're angry that your parents put you here. How do we process and move through those? So we
Yeah.
try to ground and regulate whatever is externally happening, maybe with a little bit of movement and definitely with some breath, acknowledge where we are, and then we'll bring more movement into the practice. It might be like something very rhythmic, like a sun salutation. It
Mhm.
might be taking the yoga dice out and rolling the yoga dice. They can throw them a little bit. It's something that they can throw. So that's fun and
Mhm.
exciting. I have a deck. It's upstairs. It's like it looks like an oracle card deck, but each one is a yoga pose, and it has some really healing mantras on it. And I'll let them pick a
Mhm.
card, maybe a random one, or maybe one that really speaks to them. So I try to give them choice in it, and they do
Mhm.
have the choice. If they just want to sit there and listen, they can. But really, that doesn't happen because I lure them in as best I can. And then we always end with some kind of a meditation, progressive body relaxation, body scan, and try to get as comfortable as we can with the resources we're allowed to have in the hospital setting. Because, like, I can't bring in
Yeah.
straps and blocks and things like that because they are a strangulation risk.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's really important for me to bring in that play and fun aspect to the hospital
Yeah.
because a lot of it is really serious. Like when they work with their therapist, they might talk about the last time that they tried to kill themselves. When they work with me, we get to move that out of their system without standing
Mhm.
up in front of the group and necessarily saying what it is, because they just came from process group
Right.
where they were going through that stuff. And then I talked to that therapist and like, okay, what's going on? Okay, all right, got it. So it's really complex, but also so simple at the same time. Just trying to navigate staying human and navigate this nervous
Mhm.
system.
And definitely managing things in terms of showing that being part of human is the ability to hold two emotions. We don't actually have
Absolutely.
to pick one, we can hold both. and
Yes.
it's okay to hold both. It's also amazing that you do give them choices because they're in a world sometimes where they don't have a lot of choice. So you
Hmm.
might be luring them in, but you're luring them in with choice. You know,
Yeah.
how about if we throw some dice? How about if you maybe pick your own card, right? I think that's a really good way to have them feel more empowered
Yeah.
and to feel a little autonomy in their life when obviously there might be things going on that are so chaotic for them, they don't know how to process those emotions on their own. So you're providing a safe space for them to really have choice, an empowered choice. So
Yeah.
thank you for that
Mhm.
because I've also worked with teens, and it's a very rewarding yet challenging space to be in.
Oh yeah, it can
So
definitely be challenging. But I love
yeah.
that you keep saying empowering because that's the whole goal of yoga therapy. I'm not here to fix anybody. I'm not going to,
Mhm.
whether we use crystals and oracle cards or, the yoga sutras, I'm not here to just dish that out and say, no, you are cured.
Yeah.
No, I've got the toolbox and we are going to open this up and see what works for you. What do you want to try? What do you want to
Mhm.
avoid? You know, how can you learn to take ownership and control of your own life and your own nervous system?
Yeah.
Because that's what it's all about. I cannot control your nervous system. You cannot control mine.
Yeah. Mm-mm. So I'm happy that you brought that up because part of my spiel, when I'm seeing somebody new is I let them know right off the bat, this is about them. They lead, I follow. We come together, we create together a healing environment, which goes right back to that empowerment because when somebody can step into their own healing space and do the work that they need, then they get to create something for themselves. We
Yes.
get to witness it. Absolutely. We get to explore with them, but it's really ultimately their work. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
then it's something they can always access. They don't need us because
Hmm.
they've learned it. They can go back and find
Yeah.
it on their own. I love
It is
to
one of the,
go ahead.
oh, sorry. I was going to say it is one of the things that I actually share with a lot of people is that I feel like as a therapist, people were in therapy much longer than when I do well, even when I was doing it, using regular therapy, they weren't with me forever, but I feel like they process through much faster in yoga therapy. Like the amount of work that can be done in, say, 6 sessions of yoga therapy versus 6 sessions of traditional therapy. And I don't mean this to sound negative by any means, but because we're working with so many different levels,
Mhm.
within the body, that it comes out much quicker. That's the only way I
Yes.
can express it.
I had a client who was seeing a cognitive behavioral therapist and
Mhm.
was coming to me for just like regular yoga classes and said, "What can I try this yoga therapy thing with you?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." And in the first session, we were doing some somatic work for the psoas. She said, "My hips are
Mhm.
really tight, my hips hurt." I can see that. And just in the very first session, she started crying. Okay, what are you feeling? Like slowly getting into it. And she told me about a huge traumatic event in her life and came back the next week. And she said, "I told my therapist that I told you about this event, and she couldn't believe it. She said, 'It took you 2 months to tell me.'"
Yeah.
Well, and there's
Yeah.
two things happening, right? Or maybe three things. She she had already created a safe space to share it once.
Mhm.
And she already knew a little bit about yoga. So all of those things working together created this huge release. And she slept so well that night. She's like, I don't know why I slept. I'm like, yes, you do know why. What did you do? She's like, oh, yeah, I guess I let go of all that stress. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I agree that we can get more progress in yoga
Yeah.
therapy if we're willing to let that progress show up.
Right. I actually had a client who had some pretty serious trauma in her earlier years, and she was very vata, very moved around quite a
I can
bit.
relate to that.
Yeah. I mean, through the entire, our first session, I mean, she was just all over the place. And after a few weeks, she was telling me that she didn't feel quite so fatigued. I believe was I was trying to think of the correct word, fatigued. And I asked her, I said, you go to the gym sometimes. She said, yeah. And I said, now imagine going to the gym and working out all day long. I said, don't you think you might be a little tired? And she's like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, yeah. When you have all of that energy and you're trying to bring it out, whether it's physically or emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot of energy to be putting out on a daily basis. So when you can finally release it, yeah, you're going to sleep well. Your body's going to
Yeah.
be like, oh, right.
Like, thank goodness I don't have to keep
You,
keeping those muscles tight and tense. I
right?
can drop this load. Yeah.
And just rest. Yeah, rest, which is one of the things that we're helping clients do, right?
Yeah,
Find a
absolutely.
space to be present, to be balanced, to
Mm-hmm.
rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even if all we do is recognize, oh, I'm imbalanced right now. That's progress.
Mhm.
Like, I need and deserve rest. That's progress.
Yes.
And the next step is actually allowing yourself to take it.
Yes. And I think that's something that we don't normally do in our society.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, we value doing too much. Yeah.
Hmm.
For example, yesterday was my birthday and I did pretty much nothing. And people sent me lovely messages. They're like, what are you doing for your birthday? I hope you have a beautiful day. I'm like, don't set my birthday up for expectations of me to have to do a lot of stuff. I planted 2 banana trees that I had for like 3 weeks, and that was it. So my birthday was a day of rest and chill.
Mm.
And even in my own head, I should be doing more to celebrate. No, your nervous system has been go, 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 go all spring. Just enjoy.
Yeah.
I
I
have to
think
be
that
my
is a
own therapist.
wonderful birthday present to give to yourself. Rest.
Rest. Ah,
Yes. Right.
yeah.
Um, you actually had mentioned possibly doing a little bit of Oracle card with
Yeah.
us.
I'm gonna play
Yeah,
some Oracle cards.
I do.
All right, let's do it. I've got a deck here, and I already like saged it earlier to clear the cards out. It's part of the process that I like to do. So pull a card and do like a little breathing chill for a couple minutes. Is that good?
Yeah, I like
Right.
that.
This deck is by Kyle Gray, Angels and Ancestors, and it comes with a
Mm.
nice little guidebook that has more information on each card. I like this deck because it's so multicultural. It goes across all kinds of ancestors,
Hmm.
and it has an owl on the front. It kind of looks Harry Potter-ish to me. I don't know. So
I
that part
love
too.
owls.
Wise owls. All right, so I'll pull maybe like 1 or 2 cards to see maybe just a reminder of what we can each remember to bring into our own day, our own week somehow. The beauty of oracle cards is that they're all positive messages, and we can each interpret them in our own way, and of course, be right and spot on. So I'll offer my interpretation of it, and if you have something you want to offer back, feel free, and everybody can do this in their own way. So, what's a good reminder for us today or this week? I'll just kind of shuffle until somebody jumps out at me or fall about. Oh, this one's not going back in. That's not going to go in, so we'll take that. I love that one. You're going to like that one. Somebody, come on out here. Okay, this guy's not going in either. Okay, this is totally for you. So we have the trader, exchange energy to create abundance, and the high priest, intend and create. So I'll hold these close so you can see the artwork on them. Exchange
Those are
energy.
beautiful.
Yeah. Exchange energy to create abundance and intend and create. So if it feels okay, sit up tall and let your shoulders relax. And maybe let your chin drop and your gaze be soft or your eyes closed. And if you're driving, obviously, come back to this later. Notice your breath. Maybe slow your inhales and your exhales. Allowing a little more softness and a little more space to come into your body. A little more softness and space to come into your breath. A little more softness and space into your mind, your intuition, and your connection beyond yourself. Keeping the breath slow and smooth. These cards ask us to think about what it is that we might have an intention to create. What is it that you are creating intentionally? Is there a place you would like to shift your focus? Maybe there are so many things that take your attention, and it's really not helping you create what it is that you want in this life. So, what is it that you intend to create? And can you see how the energy you are putting out, the energy that you are exchanging with this creation, is going to come back and create abundance? Create abundance for you, perhaps for your community, for the universe. And we don't exactly get to know where it is. So we have to have trust and faith that if we are intentional with what we are creating, know and believe that the energy that we are exchanging is creating abundance. And that is asking us to go down the path and live our purpose and our highest calling for the greatest good. A couple more breaths here. Just maybe letting that settle, letting that idea of exchanging and creating abundance settle in your body. Notice if this idea has constricted your chest or your throat, or notice if it has created a vast openness because you are ready to receive and proceed. Or maybe this is an affirmation to what you are already doing. Notice if your breath is still flowing freely. Allow the inhales and the exhales to flow, just like the exchange of energy that you are intentionally creating. And on this last breath, visualize the world with this offering that you have been called here to give. And at some point, come back to this practice. Do it again. Journal, draw, write it out as many times as you need to get a clear intention, a clear plan, and feel that exchange of energy and abundance surrounding you and those that you love. When you find your next exhale, soften your face and let your eyes open gently. Bring a little movement if you need to. Yeah, this was for you. This is about this podcast. I love it. It's so perfect.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. That was amazing. It spoke to my heart for sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me play Oracle cards.
Now, I love that you do bring play in, as we close up, the podcast today. There's two things I'd like to bring up. The first one being that, um, if you can speak into this piece of the playfulness, right? I think that so many of us leave behind our childhood and we leave behind the wonder, the playfulness, the curiosity. And I think that when we can invite that play back in, it opens us up to faith, hope, open-mindedness, creativity.
Yeah.
Any thoughts that you might have on that?
These are all things that come from a regulated nervous system. When our nervous system is regulated, we can play at a higher and more free level. And when we play, our nervous system becomes more regulated. It is a positive feedback cycle. If we are dysregulated, we can't play. In that window of tolerance, if we're in either one of those clouds, super hard to play.
Yeah.
Being able to play is a privilege and a gift, as is a regulated nervous system. So being an adult is kind of like a constant state of dysregulation, unless you are intentional. I put the card back, but yeah, unless you are intentionally creating a place to play.
Right.
And that's what I love to bring that into my work, into my play. I don't want to call it work.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for that. And finally, where can people find you? Yes, this is going to be in the show notes, but where can we find you?
I put a lot of stuff on Instagram when I'm on social media. I'm not on it as often as, probably a lot of people are. And I'm creating some more classes and offerings in Thinkific in the Science and Spirit Playground, where we play and we take the science and the magic and let them integrate together. I have an Oracle card class that I'm going to be releasing in there soon. So you can find me there, and you can probably find me at like a Michael Franti concert or a music cruise or
I love it.
anywhere where there's some fun yoga going on. So,
And we can find you in what school?
NDMU, Notre Dame
Notre
University,
Dame.
Maryland, formerly known as Maryland University of Integrative Health. Yeah, come check out our yoga therapy program over there. We have webinars that talk about what yoga therapy is somewhere.
Yes.
I'll try to send you that too.
Thank you so much for coming on today. I'm very grateful to have you here with me and whoever's going to watch. And thank you so much again. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank you.
for the gift of getting the chance to be here and just kind of share. You are creating a beautiful place for your listeners and also for your guests. So thank you. Thank you for your
Thank
work.
you.
Thank you for joining us today. If you would like to support this content, hit the like button, subscribe, or leave a comment. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a fabulous day.